Hello, InfoBlox partners. It's the top of the hour, and it's time for us to get into our BLOXCAST for partner SEs. Today, the topic is Let a Data Exfil Demo Sell ActiveTrust Cloud. And we have a team of guys who have used this time and time again and have proven it effective, and they're here to show you guys how to do a Exfil demo for ActiveTrust Cloud. Let me introduce the guy who's going to MC this today, Dirk Binsloff, Director Worldwide Partner Business Development. Hello, Dirk.
Hey, thanks, Rick, and thank you for joining, everyone. Appreciate you guys' time. We feel these are very critical pieces of information that we want to provide for you, and just wanted to start at the top of the hour here to let you know we'll have a survey at the end. I'll mention it again at the end as well, but the inputs that you provide us are very useful. We think pretty diligently about how we put these programs together and want to provide useful information for you. If there's ever anything that you guys want to talk about or have us address in a future BLOXCAST, please do let us know. So we'll get started introducing our panel here. We have Sif Baksh, who is our Senior Systems Engineer in the Western region, an architect of a number of those wins that we talked about last week on the Sales BLOXCAST. So it's great to have Sif back on the line. And Jim Zelnowski, you've seen him before. We've talked about DNS security best practices on a previous BLOXCAST as well. So he's on the partner team and such a wonderful resource that we have, and look forward to having him talk to you about what we have coming up next. Chris Hendy, a partner to Sif in the Dream Team on the West. And he also was part of those wins that we talked about last week, and he can provide some commentary from a sales perspective if you guys have any questions. And then finally, of course, myself is here. We have Brandon Berg. You've seen him on other BLOXCASTs as well, master of all our communications and just really running how we present our information to our partners with various newsletters, these BLOXCASTs and so forth. Really just great asset that we have on the team. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jim. Jim, thanks for being here, and please take it over.
Thanks, Dirk. Just want to kind of give an overview of the session objectives. What we're going to try to accomplish here today is to show how dangerous DNS is, and allowing you to ask the question to your customers, how do you secure DNS? Because, with InfoBlox products, we're dealing with network people in the organization and security people in the organization. They have different objectives, different needs. And what we want to accomplish here is for your ability to focus strictly on the security operations team, to be able to address their specific needs and with a solution that we have here that will allow you to open up that conversation of how you secure DNS, show how DNS is so dangerous, provide some best practices in that discussion, and then offer a solution with our ActiveTrust Cloud, and then be able to use a penetration tool we call data exfiltration, or DEX, to demonstrate how to steal data through their current organization. And Sif will be demonstrating that. So, and then showing how DEX can be used as a sales tool. So there are some elements there we'll show that you can use to move it from a prospect to an opportunity and hopefully a deal. So with that, let's just start out with asking the question, how do you secure DNS? And you're going to probably get a lot of answers that my firewall does it. And being able to run through, let's say, something like the slide deck to show that everything starts with a DNS query. So if I wanted to go to www.hacker.com, the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to send a query to my local DNS server, which could be a Microsoft server. And it's not going to be authoritative for hacker.com. So it's going to therefore have to go out for resolution into the internet to the top level domain, and then find that particular record. So it goes through the firewall, which probably is, seeing it as a good DNS query, out into the internet, and then eventually gets to the hacker.com server, which logs the request and returns an IP address back to this client with the website that hacker.com wants them to go to. So at that point, the system could do an HTTP request, which will go straight out through the firewall if there's no blocking of that particular request. And now the device is actually connected to where the hacker wants to go. Now, the interesting thing is that the misuse of DNS protocol has now led to the opportunity to exfiltrate data and do additional command and control and send various types of shell scripts and other types of communication back and forth using the technique of just taking the domain and then using that domain to prepend it with information that could be credit card, personal information, intellectual property. And this is really the concept of data exfiltration. So it kind of goes out from the machine as either the subdomain, as you see here, random number string, or characters, or host name. Well, so when it hits the local DNS server, it's immediately going to say, I'm not authoritative for this subdomain or host name, so I'm going to send it out for resolution. And again, it goes straight through the firewall if it's not a known website to be blocked. And when it hits the hacker.com server, what they'll do is they'll log and parse out the front end information, which is the data that they actually want to steal, or the command and control response information. And then they'll do another one. They'll do another one and another one and another one, and then continue. So what they're doing is they basically segmented the data. They're reconstructing the segmented data. A lot of times it's encrypted in base 32, base 64 encryption. That data then becomes reassembled, and now you have the actual file that you stolen. And you notice that there wasn't really any common response back. I mean, this was a one-way communications, just sending this information using DNS straight through to the end site. To give you an idea of currently what's going on with this is that it's been used in the past with a number of different techniques, such as framework POS. So very, very heavily targeted in retail, but it's not strictly retail. It's used in other verticals such as pharmaceuticals or manufacturing, oil companies. A lot of people have seen this type of technique, and this latest one here from February 2018 shows it using 4 point-of-sale machines to do command and control and exfiltration of the information, in this case, credit card info that's out there. So this is real. It's not being stopped by any particular mechanism in place because it looks like real good quality DNS queries and not malformed to the point where it would be stopped. Now, there are some best practices that you could offer your customer, the specific security team, that could help alleviate this problem. And let's just take a normal data center environment where you have client machines, an internal DNS server, probably Microsoft, a DMZ, where you have your firewall, your proxies, your gateways. And going out to the internet, what we suggest is to offer or propose a solution using Infoblox ActiveTrust Cloud, which we have the acronym ATC. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to really lock down communication so that it becomes a choke point at the cloud. So you don't allow any port 53 responses back in other than from the cloud. And you only allow outgoing DNS queries from the DNS server and not from any other system. This will allow the malware or any type of manipulation of the DNS server, DNS device out there saying, hey, I want to go to 8888 or Google. It's not going to allow it to go through. It's going to all be forced to come from this DNS server, and that will then be forwarded directly to the cloud, including the proxies, because even proxies, as Sif is going to show you with a standard web page, DNS is the first thing that's always resolved, and it can be used easily to steal data. So what we can do here at HTC up in the cloud is we can look at signatures to make sure that we're blocking standard signatures of tunneling. And that's part of the ActiveTrust solution. Other things that we can do is we have a very large reputational list that we curate, and we categorize that information. We're talking lots of 14 million plus threat indicators that we can look at, and that's all part of in the cloud using our response policy zone detection of each individual query and query response as it goes out for resolution. And the idea is to act on that and do any type of blocking. And then the last thing that we can do, which is a zero-day solution, which is to look at the behavior or machine learning to look at data exfiltration, to be able to spot those subdomains or host names that are using encrypted data or segmented information to steal. And we usually learn this very quickly, and Seth's going to actually demonstrate that to show you how we can do that in the DEX tool, and that's called our Threat Insight feature. It's available in the cloud and also available on premise if that happens to be somewhere it leads to. So let's take a look at how this all looks now using that same host name or subdomain to steal data. In this case, we're actually going to now use that best practice of forcing everything to our cloud, where we can do checking of 14 of those million threat indicators, do the deep packet inspection to look for stealing data through data exfiltration, and be able to block or redirect that information. So again, it's going to just go through the standard DNS server. It probably won't be available to be stopped at the firewall. So when it hits our cloud, we're going to look at each individual query, we're going to learn those queries, and we're going to block at that point. Now, the other thing that you can ask the question to even strengthen the opportunity for ActiveTrust Cloud is do you have a lot of mobile users? Do people take these PCs offsite and go home or work remotely? In that case, it then really strengthens the solution, because we have roaming clients for Mac and Apple that can be loaded on, so that when they leave the facility, anytime they try to do a query, they try to bring up their machine, it's going to actually encrypt the DNS queries and force them directly to the cloud. So the same effect will happen for all the mobile clients that go off-site that are now no longer on-site. And it will inform the SIM, of all indications, so the customer has the ability to investigate that. And because we are doing that deep packet inspection, we are the only zero-day solution on the market today that looks for data exfiltration in real time and other types of techniques that require a lot of machine horsepower, which is fast flux, double fluxing, as you may have heard of, or what they call DGAs, domain generated algorithms, which is a very common technique used for command and control for a malware that's out there. Now, security teams might say, hey, listen, I'm just seeing the IP address of the firewall when things hit my the cloud up here when I look at what the indicator is. So if they're more interested in saying, I need to do incident resolution very quickly, we can offer a solution inside where we can actually do what we call DNS forwarding proxy, which means all the DNS requests will go not just directly to the Microsoft DNS server, they'll come to our VM or our device that's there, and we'll actually send the proper DNS zones to the local DNS server, and anything that's destined for the internet will be encrypted and then sent directly up into the cloud. In that case, we're going to be able to identify the exact 10-dot address of the device that's actually infected. And you've got a better, broader reach of understanding of what's happening inside the actual data center related to the actual IP address. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Seth, and he's going to kind of show you how you steal data.
So one of the things from that perspective of stealing data, I actually have this file here that this is what my sales guy uses all the time, Chris Hindi, by the way. we actually went through this whole demo process, and we think it's a good concept to show people the fact that you can actually steal data just like this. And as you can see, we're showing off here that we have Rick Johnson, a DJ of Infoblox, using this file as our demo to actually steal this from my actual machine using our data exfil demo portal, which will show you guys how you can create accounts and manage customers here in a few minutes. But one of the things I do love about our data exfiltration demo actually gives you this brief overview of how data exfil demo works. So that way, when you're in front of customers and showing them this, you can show them exactly, hey, this is step one, this is what we're doing. This is taking the data, encrypting it, like Jim just went over, and then it's making a request out from your corporate internet to the target DNS server. Then they're decrypting it. So that's the beauty of it. It has that little nutshell as a reminder as well for you to explain it to the customer so they have a better understanding. And for data exfiltration demos, I always like to use Hexify. One, it shows them exactly what it's doing in the background. So basically all we do is select a file. In this case, I have my data exfil demo. As you can see right here, Rick Johnson's name is in there. Click open. Now I'm going to say, yes, go ahead and let's transfer this file. And it's going to start transferring. And again, as Jim was talking about, here are the queries that it's making. As you can see, it's using, it's adding the subdomains, so it's keeping track of each single query that's coming in. Majority of these are coming back at what we would call NX domain. So basically there's no response. But as you can see here, I am getting some information from there. And what we can look at now is that same file that was on my desktop is now, since it loads here, as you can see, Rick Johnson. And right here, you can see it's actually on my demo server, data exfil demo. The beauty of that is we're able to steal that from my machine straight through to the cloud, and nothing can stop me. Now, of course, I'm just on my home Wi-Fi, but even in a corporate Wi-Fi, it's still the same concept. And then we'll walk you through how you can set up your customers to go through that process as well. And the other thing as well, there are some other ones, data infiltration tools, fast flux, and terms and conditions, of course. And we won't cover the data exfil demo on here at the moment, but we will probably in another session. The way I actually explained it to Chris is the way our data exfil demo works, and it's actually really good, the fact that he can actually do the demos now. This is something I don't even do. Chris talks to it now. But the beauty of it is we actually go over the process of explaining to the customer that this is your sensitive data, where malware is actually encoding it, and here's every single query. So basically, it's a malware. This guy has no idea what's going on the machine. Hopping over here to thief.com, and then your corporate server sends it to the target server, and they're just getting all your information. Now, the beauty of this, and where Chris comes in, is the fact that now he takes this entire demo, and him being my account manager, actually is running with it and explaining it to customers. And as of right now, I think we're batting 1,000, where no one has actually been able to block our DNS tunneling test.
Chris, would you talk for just a moment about how you stepped up to do this as a sales rep? Because that seemed a bit unusual to me.
Sure, yeah. So the strategy that Sif and I wanted to use was, it's so easy to exfiltrate data out of your network that even an account manager can do it. So, I mean, of course, a smart guy like Sif and Jim, engineers, they can figure it out, but we wanted to come across with the message, because more often than not, the opposition that you're going to get when you're in front of a customer is they're going to think that they're already secure for DNS. I'm good to go. I've got my next generation firewalls in place. I've got my, my other security solutions in place that look at DNS. So the message that we wanted to, come across with was like, oh, really? You're probably not as secure as you think. And here, let us show you this demo that'll prove that we can exfiltrate data. And oh, by the way, we're going to have the sales guy do it who doesn't even really know how to do this. So, any 13-year-old in his garage with Hexify can, get into your network and exfiltrate data. So Sif and I had that strategy. I had Sif show me how to do this. It literally took me 10 minutes to learn how to do this. So that's another thing that we wanted to come across for the folks listening today was, don't be afraid to sign up for the portal and do this. It's super easy to learn. And it's like Sif said, we're batting 1,000. We haven't been at a customer site yet where we haven't done this successfully. So it's an eye opener for sure.
All right. So it's sometimes important to show how dangerous this is. This DNS is the #1 security vector that is of major concern to CISOs and to security operations. As you can see from here, that 91% of all malware uses DNS, and it starts the whole process. And that the average loss to a data breach is $4 million. So, and the loss in brand, the fact that this chews up a lot of resources to analyze and to resolve, really is something that customers should seriously take a look at. So advance the slide and the next one. And what's interesting is we're seeing that 9 out of 10 customers are vulnerable to DNS exfiltration because of the fact that it's #1 vector. So using this as a sales tool, DEX, next slide. The portal does give you that ability not only to demonstrate, but it offers you the ability to give this as a URL to your customers so that they have an opportunity over a period of time with their security team to play around with, to use, and find out that they are not as secure as they probably should be. So advance the slide. The one thing that that you as a partner have when you register for access to the data exfiltration portal is this this end customer access. That is not something that the customer sees. They see the other areas that Seth was able to demonstrate, the tools and so forth. But this is really where you actually get to move this from an prospect to an opportunity. Next slide. Because you can actually create a database of your customers. You can input the customer name, the representative, the email address, and then the status is where you get to see over the 2-week period access that they have access. When you hit advance the slide, you're going to advance and see that that, let's say the bottom one, Bob Gill, EDU-US, had used data exfiltration for just about everything. They did testing, they did scripting, they did the Hexify. So they probably a really good opportunity because they've really exercised this particular tool. But in the case of, let's say, John Ray up here, the second user down at the credit union, he shows registered. So he you actually put him in the system, but you don't even know if he logged in. So you can go to information when you hit click to the next slide. Next. And the next slide will then show that the information button related for John Ray, when you click on it, on next slide, you're going to have these buttons available for additional things that you can do. So hitting the information button, you can see here, you have all the information that you have in the database associated with the credit union and John Ray. And the bottom part here where it says first logged in is where you see that he's logged in and the last time he's logged in. So John had at least taken the registration that you gave him and logged in and then surfed around, probably looked at some of the features, but he hasn't used any of the tests. So this is a great opportunity to give a call back and actually ask, hey, John, did you get your team together? Can I help you? Can my SE give you some guidance in using the tool? Other things is say, well, I haven't got around to it, and if the 2 weeks have expired, you can hit the next slide. And next slide. You can renew his access by clicking on this button. He'll be renewed for an additional 2 weeks. So you can continue to move this on because if they got distracted, you know, and it expired, now renewing gives that additional 2 weeks, and you can always, again, keep going back in and seeing if they've gone beyond registration, if they actually use the tool. If you want to send additional information like URLs, click next. You can send an invite to another individual in the organization, or hit the next button. You can actually just copy the URL, hit next, and put it into a more focused email, let's say to the CISO, and have that URL there so that he can get it together with his team, and then that URL immediately gives him right access to the portal. And at the end, you can hit the red button, and that can then you just wipe him out of the system, and you know, if the opportunity does move forward. So hit the next button. The interesting thing is, remember that 9 out of 10 prospects are vulnerable for data exfiltration, and what we found with our partners is that 3 out of 10 prospects become pipeline using DEX. So this is a great sales tool. I really encourage you to use it. And to give you some ideas, hitting the next slide, you're gonna, to get started. If you leave this presentation and you don't use, or you now have an opportunity for data exfiltration, you can always brush up on how to use it and how data exfiltration works by watching this YouTube video. So we get a copy of this, you'll be able to click on to this link, and it will go through like about a 10-minute video on how data exfiltration works, how DEX works, and then that'll give you a little bit of confidence. And then the additional information on how our ActiveTrust Cloud works. There's a data sheet there. To register for data exfiltration, you can see on the second bullet is HTTPS at dex.infoblox.com. And remember that you can use this end customer access as a sales tool to move from prospect to opportunity and then hopefully to a sale. If you do need additional help, myself, the partner sales SE for the East, and on the West Coast, it's Tony Vallata. We'll be more than happy to walk you through, get you understanding this. And then I'm going to turn this over because the last point is something that Dirk wants to tell you about.
Thank you, Jim. As we see the slide building here, just wanted to talk again about, we mentioned it last week, you know, we want to encourage people to get their hands on the product, right? This data exfiltration demo is definitely something that it's very powerful. It relates to ActiveTrust Cloud, which is one of the primary topics that we talked about today. But obviously, as you guys know, it's going to be something that's powerful for anything when we talk about DNS security. So don't think of it only in terms of ActiveTrust Cloud, but certainly these are two things that are really working hand in hand. And in that vein, we have an offer for a 100-user demonstration license. It's a year license. It's a full license, but just the term of a year, which is fairly typical from a cloud perspective. We want to get that in the hands of customers. And we want to encourage you not only to use your new skills from the data exfiltration demo that you're going to help drive, but also if you get this in the hands of a customer, we're going to pay you to do that. And it's a multi-tiered, as you can kind of see here, getting it in the hands of the customer, getting them to actually start using it. If an opportunity results out of it, there's a second payout. And then if the deal closes before the end of July of this year, then there's a doubling of that payout. So pretty exciting offering. We really want to encourage that kind of interaction with us. And again, please note that you're not going to be doing this alone. You know, we have folks that are on the call here. We have other folks in the field, counterparts to Chris and Sif that are more than happy to, you know, help you along. As you know, it's not just, hey, here's your tool and go for it. We're happy to be there, and we want that integration with you and want to walk with you the entire step of the process. So keep that in mind. We are very sincere about trying to get this done, so we want to make it look interesting for you. So appreciate that. If there are any questions from that perspective, please put that in the Q&A. And let me also remind you that we will have a survey. Brandon will talk about it here in a minute, but definitely want to hear your feedback relative to, you know, topics, how the session went today, topics for the future, and how we can help you, you know, be more successful and drive more excitement and business through your customers.
Thanks, Dirk. We have some time for Q&A now. We've gone through the demo and we've heard about how effective it is. 3 out of 10 turn into pipeline. That really is remarkable. We do have one question in that, Sif, I believe you were going to answer. Did you already get to that and I missed it?
No. Let me go ahead and answer that. So the question is, does OpenDNS block dex.infoblox.com? They used to, now they don't. I've actually had a customer recently test that for me. If they still are, we need to open a case to verify that answer, because they shouldn't be blocking it because it is a legitimate website.
And Chris,
yeah, it's important to know. I was going to say it's important to know that what we did is we actually employed what the actual hackers do. We actually do a fast flux technique to be able to change our domain name as it's being blocked. So we have a very large number of domain names that we use for where we send this data when we steal it. So it's really almost impossible for OpenDNS to continue to block our tests these days.
No, it's no longer our tests. It's actually specifically that dex.infoblox.com is what he's referring to. So if the customer already has OpenDNS and they try to go there, it would actually block it. That is, you know, just malicious on Cisco's end because it's not a bad site. It's just using for demo purposes. So that's what Bob's referring to, because I've had that happen to me.
Okay, that's a good point. But it is also important to point out that the test was initially being blocked by them putting on the reputational list the site that we were sending the data to, and now we've actually incorporated the technique that hackers do to fast flux our changes. So we do send DEX data through OpenDNS or Umbrella with no blocking at this point in time, so it does show data exfiltration.
Can you gentlemen talk about, you know, what is the reaction when you do a demo as well and they see data was exfiltrated? Is there sort of a, oh my gosh, what do I have to do next kind of moment from the customer? Chris, have you seen that on their faces? Is it a little bit like, you know, I want to kind of hide a little bit, or what's the reaction?
Yeah, absolutely. And personally, that's why I love doing them. Because like I said earlier, most of our customers, almost all of our customers, think they're secure. You know, because when we start talking to them about DNS security, they're like, yeah, you're one of, 100, companies that I'm talking to about security. You know, how are you guys any different? And we're like, well, we're the only ones that can protect your DNS from, active tunneling and data exfiltration, and we can prove it. And here's how we prove it. We do it, and they're like, oh, crap. Yes, you just exposed a vulnerability. Thank you very much. Yeah. So, yeah, we do get those, those jaw-dropping moments. So it's a great demo to do.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to emphasize again, too, this is something that we're not just doing this in our own little vacuum here. Infoblox is an accretive technology to the other technologies that are out there, right? A lot of different vendors talk about ecosystem integration and so forth, and we certainly have that as well. But I think what we also bring that's unique to the table is not only integration potentially, but also to enhance some of the other features and functionality of other security devices and endpoints and so forth. So this is definitely an add-on to some of the things that you're doing, and not an or question for you or your customers. So that's a very powerful story as well.